We've stayed at LEGOLAND Windsor 4 times now across the 2 different hotels, so I know this place pretty well. This time we were in the resort hotel, and yes, there are caveats. One of them involved a blocked toilet and moving rooms at 11 o'clock at night with a tired 9-year-old. But here's the thing, it's not what went wrong that matters, it's how LEGOLAND dealt with it. One of the best things about the LEGOLAND Resort Hotel is where it is. You're steps away from the rides, there's an on-site bar, evening entertainment, and a room where you can build as much Lego as you want. The hotel has been around for a while, but the corridors and themed areas are well maintained. I was genuinely surprised at how fresh it still feels. That said, even though the theming is fun and the Lego branded throughout, it doesn't have the same wow factor as the Castle Hotel. They're both good, the rooms themselves are clean, comfortable and well looked after. This isn't a tired budget hotel, it just isn't brand new either. Each room has a different theme: pirates, Lego friends, adventure and kingdom. So if you know your child has a favourite, it's well worth selecting that floor when you book. That small detail can make the room feel more personal. We stayed in the kingdom room, which is Lego Knights themed. Compared to the Castle Hotel, you can tell it isn't quite as immersive, but it's still very well done. The rooms are well set up for families, kids get their own bunk beds, adults get a proper double bed, and they're separated enough that bedtime doesn't have to mean everyone going quiet at the same time. The theming is fun without being overwhelming. It's Lego everywhere, but in a way that feels considered rather than just slapping it on. One thing worth knowing before you arrive is that when you stay at the LEGOLAND Hotel, it means you don't enter the park through the main gate. You use a separate hotel entrance instead. Now, it's not a major issue, but it's just worth being aware of. If it's your first visit, walking through the main gate with your kids is genuinely one of those moments. By staying on site, you trade that for the convenience of being steps away from the rides. Neither's wrong, it's just worth knowing before you arrive. Check-in itself has always been smooth in our experience. You check in online before you arrive, you get a code, and you use that code to collect your room number and keys. Now, it's worth noting there is a £5 deposit, but you do get that back when you check out. The lobby is a good start to the trip. There's Lego models everywhere, there's a small Lego shop, and a little build station where kids can sit and create something while you sort yourselves out. So how did things go wrong for us? We arrived, we dropped the bags off and went out for dinner. We then spent some time at the bar watching the evening entertainment. It wasn't until we got back to the room later that night that we discovered the toilet was blocked, and not in a minor way. And at 11 o'clock at night, our 9-year-old needed sleep. We went down to reception and they sorted us a replacement room, and nobody argued with us or made us feel like we were causing a problem. Definitely frustrating, disruptive, absolutely, the kind of thing that could really sour a trip if it was handled badly. But LEGOLAND Hotel handled it very well. They refunded us a portion of that night's stay and even gave us a couple of queue jump passes for the following day. What this told me is how the place actually operates when things go wrong, and that's arguably more useful than everything going right. They didn't argue, they didn't minimize the issue, they acknowledged it, sorted it, and tried to make it right. And when you're spending that kind of money on a trip, that really matters. Let's face it, things go wrong in any hotel sometimes. What you want to know is whether they'll do something about it, and based on our experience, LEGOLAND Resort Hotel will. The entertainment area is next to the Skyline Bar and the Bricks restaurant, and it runs most evenings. If your kids are under 7 and into Lego characters, this is generally good. There's also this giant Lego globe where kids and adults can build things and add to them in a shared structure. Our son absolutely loved this, and I'll be honest, so did I. With the Skyline Bar, it has a wide range of drinks available, and to be fair, the prices are pretty reasonable for where you are. One of the biggest advantages of staying at one of the LEGOLAND hotels is the early park access. Certain areas of the park open up at 9:30, around about 30 minutes before the general public arrive. Now, this isn't just a perk that sounds better than it is. You get access to Fly to the Skyline and the Deep Sea Adventure, some of the most popular rides on the park. Most of the day, I've seen the Flight of the Skyline with a 30 to 60 minute queue. We were on it first thing. After that, the pressure is off. The rest of the day feels more relaxed because you've already done the big rides. We'll usually follow up with the Dragon or the Minifigure Speedway while the queues are still short. Getting 2 or 3 of the major rides done before the crowds build means you spend less time worrying about queues and more time actually enjoying the park, whether that's wandering around Miniland or helping our son collect another pop badge. It's one of the best reasons for staying on site. So is the LEGOLAND Resort Hotel actually worth the money? Let me break it down simply, because if you were to look at the total price, you probably stop watching. In peak summer, we're talking August school holidays, a family room for 2 adults and 1 child is £454. Now that sounds like a lot, but that includes breakfast, a small Lego gift and park entry for the whole family. Park tickets alone cost £32 per person, so that's £96 of that £454 already accounted for. If you stayed off site, you're looking at £150 to £250 for a hotel plus the park tickets on top. So when you do the maths, the gap is smaller than it looks. Whether it's worth it for your family comes down to 2 things: how old your kids are and how much they still love Lego. If you've got a 7-year-old who is deep in their Lego phase, waking up in a themed room, walking straight to the park, getting on the big rides before anyone else arrives, this is the kind of trip that they'll talk about for years. The families who will love this most are the ones with kids that are like 4 to 12 who are full on Lego fans right now. If that's you, this hotel is a very strong call. Breakfast is included, the staff are helpful, and as our experience showed, if something does go wrong, they'll deal with it properly. Now even me as an adult, I am obsessed with Lego and I absolutely love staying at the hotels. I've linked the booking page in the description. It is an affiliate link, so it costs you nothing extra, but it does help support the channel if you find this useful. We've got a full park review coming up, a cost breakdown video and a proper castle versus resort hotel comparison, all of which you'll find in this Legoland playlist. If you're still in the planning stage, this playlist should answer most of what you need.